Hi, I'm Larry Sassano. I'm president of Florida's Great Northwest, a 16-county regional economic development organization. I want to tell you a little bit about our organization before I introduce our guest, Dr. Murdaugh. First of all, we have three primary missions that we focus on. Number one is to brand the organization and the 16-county region, which stretches from Escambia County to the west to Jefferson County to the east. The purpose of doing this is to help people understand what the regional organization does in relation to the local economic developers. Number two is a developed strategic marketing plan that includes 14 to 16 trade missions around the world and the United States, of course, as well as site selection consultants that we deal with that bring us a lot of the qualified projects that we target. Third is to educate our public officials on understanding what their role is in economic development. So let's get into the program, and Dr. Murdaugh, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Larry, thanks for having me.
And thanks for letting us use your studio, too. I want to give a little background on Dr. Murdaugh that many of you probably already know, but I think it bears repeating because it really builds into what we're going to be talking about today. Dr. Murdaugh is an active member in the community and serves as an executive committee and board member of the Greater Tallahassee-Leon County Chamber of Commerce, executive committee and board member of the Leon County Economic Development Council, of which he is the chair-elect, which will take the seat in October of this year. Dr. Murdaugh is the governor on the board of the Leon County Research and Development Authority, board member on the United Way of the Big Bend, and board member of the Region's Workforce Plus Board, and board member of Florida's Great Northwest. So, wow, that in itself is just busy just being part of all those boards, let alone running a major college. So how do you do it, Dr. Murdaugh?
You have a very efficient person scheduling your time. That's how you get it done.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the activities, some of these boards that you're involved with in this area. And Tallahassee Community College spans beyond Leon County. Can you just address that?
Our college actually has a 3-county district. In addition to Leon County, we also serve Wakulla and Gadsden counties.
Okay. You believe in getting involved, and I wanted to mention about the community and economic development organizations. You've got a vision for the college, I know. I've read it. But belonging to these various community and economic development organizations, does that help you to focus a little differently on your vision for the college?
I think so, Larry. Increasingly, I think any of us in higher education understand that there needs to be a connection to what we offer in the way of degrees and credentials, and the fact that those degrees and credentials need to have market value, meaning they need to lead our graduates to jobs.
Right.
We believe strongly in the social value of what we do as well because we produce citizens. But the fundamental reason that we're providing education and training to people is so that they can be competitive, go into the workforce, add value to the employers that choose to hire them in terms of their productivity and skills.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much puts it in a nutshell. It's not too much different from economic development itself,
Right.
which I can see how you're going to fit so perfectly into that role as chairman of the EDC there.
Well, thank you.
Our focus is jobs, creation of jobs. Your focus is training and educating students so they can get those jobs. So this is a great partnership. And I think that's why you're involved with so many different organizations. They all kind of relate as well. And I don't think it's expected of you. I think it's probably the nature of who you are and being able to be responsible for the area by being involved with all those different organizations. So thank you. As the chair-elect for the EDC, you're directly involved with a New Image Tallahassee initiative. Can you talk about that?
The initiative is actually called Imagine Tallahassee.
Imagine Tallahassee. Okay.
And it grew from some efforts locally to take a look at the reauthorization of a penny sales tax that we have here in our area.
Okay.
And as part of that effort, legislation was passed this past year, I'm sure you're very familiar with it, that provides that up to 15% of the monies that are collected as a result of that tax can be earmarked for economic development projects. Well, as things went on and as conversations continued in our community, number one, I think that's an incredibly important initiative, because otherwise, if we don't create a structure that sets aside funds for economic development, if we don't understand that it's important to invest in different ways on economic development projects, then the urgent will always drive out the important, and we will be funding things that before we know it will eat up all the funds, and we will not pay the attention we need to pay to the economic development projects. Well, as the conversation evolved, as you know, again, as a professional in this business, it's somewhat difficult to define what is and what is not economic development projects. Right. And along came this idea that other communities had engaged in grassroots efforts to define what their communities should look like in the next 20 years. And it seemed to be a wonderful marriage of the importance of setting funds aside, and yet trying to figure out how to decide what in fact are appropriate economic development activities. So the way this comes together is that Imagine Tallahassee, which I was one of the original supporters of the idea, will do this grassroots effort. We're bringing in a consultant who has done this in other communities. It will involve all kinds of voices from all specters of the spectrum of the community. And out of that, once we define what we want to be as a community in 20 years, then that can help shape decisions to prioritize projects as they're considered for economic development activity.
Excellent.
Yeah.
20 years is that's quite a crystal ball to look into the future.
It is. It is.
But well-planned communities do that, don't they?
They do. 20 years sounds like a long time, but that goes by in a hurry, as you know, in projects like this.
You know, it's funny. 20 years. I lived here for 20 years, and my children grew up here. And you're right. That time went by very quickly. So it's a great community, and being the capital, it's probably a good direction for the capital to take, and perhaps other communities will take a look at what you're doing and perhaps mirror that as well.
Well, I've had the privilege of living here for 43 years.
Wow.
And as you can imagine, in 43 years, I've seen a lot of change, as any community does. And the exciting part about this is that perhaps for the first time, we'll have lots of input that we can use to craft a vision that we could describe in a consistent way, not only to the people who live here, but also to those that we hope to recruit here through our economic development initiatives.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's a great initiative. I will keep track of that too, because Tallahassee is the anchor for the eastern end of Florida's Great Northwest, and so you know, I deal a lot with Sue Dick, and was with her this morning, and so she and I talk a lot about what she's working on, and we're working on some projects right now that seem very suitable for Leon County. Mm-hmm. So they always do a good job, by the way, as you'll see when you take over as chair on the EDC. Well, let's talk about another project here. You're involved with the Workforce Plus Board, and that's very related to economic development. If I recall, the Economic Development Organization has to have a representative on the Workforce Plus Board in Florida. And I served on that for a number of years in Panama City and in Okaloosa County. So tell me how that's helping you to refit your vision for the area here.
Well, in terms of preparing for a new role at the EDC, of course, I've been a member of the EDC. I've had the privilege of working with Karen Moore, who's the current chair, and I know the previous chairs as well. And I look at the efforts of the Economic Development Council as a relay race. In some institutions, a new leader comes in with a new vision. I think in this work, the appropriate thing is for a new volunteer leader, because that's what the chair of the EDC is. I think the responsibility is to take the baton from where the previous chair has delivered us to and move the Economic Development Council forward. So we have a lot to build on. Karen, I think, is a hard act to follow. She's done a remarkable job. As we move forward, obviously I have perhaps a bias, perhaps a strength. I'm not sure how I want to characterize it. But we know that some of the decisions that have been made recently in terms of companies choosing to move here have been made more because of what they view here as the talent that's available than they have been as a result of incentives, for instance. Incentives are important, but we have a couple of recent major successes in this community where those who chose to come here acknowledge that 85% of their cost is people. And if you can have the available talent, and you can have the talent at a price point they can afford, and you have a community that they want to live in, then I think that's a winning scenario. The fortunate thing for me is that as a college president, what I'm all about is talent. That's what we do, is we hopefully produce students who go into the workforce, and for the people who hire them, hopefully those folks bring an enhanced set of skills and ability to improve the profitability of the companies that hire them. I have a great relationship with the others in the higher education community here, and so I would say that going into the tenure, my hope is to take the great work that Karen has done, focusing on some of the things globally that we do here in our community, focusing on some of the success stories that we've got, and build on that, maybe with a bit of a focus on shining a bright light on what we do here to have an amazing collection of talent. As you probably know, Tallahassee has one of the highest education levels of any community in the state of Florida.
Yes.
We've got Florida State University, Florida A&M University, Tallahassee Community College, and about 7 private higher education institutions. So we're pumping a lot of very bright people out of the system who are ready to go to work. And now what we need to do is make sure that we tell that story, that we provide an ecosystem of support for companies who want to come here in terms of the talent. And again, I hate to say it this way, but I say it this way, you know, the price point. You know, we're not an extremely expensive community to live in.
That's important.
And so when a company chooses to come here from a major metropolitan area, they need both. They need the availability of talent, and they need to be able to afford that talent.
Well, let me ask you something, Dr. Murdaugh. You are very knowledgeable, as you would be as president, but also of the economic development side of it,
Right.
which, you know, is, I think it's a little rare. But that's great. That's a great quality. But what I want to say is that economic developers target industries. And they target industries because they feel those are the emerging industries or the right industries for their communities. What about targeting the talent that the industries need? Because if you have the talent, then you may attract more industries, more of the type industries that are more suitable for your community.
Sure. Well, the way you teed it up would almost suggest either or. And again, I think perhaps it's my nature, but I prefer to say and. Mm-hmm. I think we need to continue to target industries for lots of reasons. In addition to that, I think we need to do a better job of telling our story about the talent.
Yeah.
And I hope we don't have to choose one path or the other. I think we can choose both.
Yeah, I agree. Very good. Thank you. I want to talk about BigBenWorks.com. A lot of layoffs with state government workers. I was one of those workers a few years back. And I always remember almost every year around legislative session that there was mandatory 5% cuts, and you know, I mean, that always seemed to be the pattern. What is Big Ben Works? How does that help all these laid off workers?
The initiative started in Tallahassee a couple of years ago when the governor and legislature made it clear that they intended to downsize state government in a very significant way. And a tremendous number or percentage of the state employees statewide happened to work in our community.
Right.
So we knew we would be affected in a fairly substantial way. and we put together a group of people representing a surprising array, frankly, to create what we call BigBendWorks.com. It's a website. BigBendWorks.com is a portal through which you can navigate for information about jobs that are available, for information about assistance that is available beyond the traditional job search sort of data. We decided, as we put it together, all of us, not just us at the college, all of us who put it together decided that people would need assistance with their heating bill. And the city of Tallahassee, for instance, had a program that if someone was in need, they could reach out to the city of Tallahassee, and the city would help them through a difficult time in their life. We knew they might need mental health services. We knew they might need crisis counseling. We knew they might need referrals for medical assistance. And so it's really a very unusual collection of resources in the sense that you go to this site, but from the site you can launch onto Employ Florida Marketplace. You can launch onto Workforce Plus. So you can go and see where jobs are actually posted that you might be eligible for. But even more than that, we wanted to provide a rich array of services that people need during a time of transition from one job to another. As you can well imagine, it's not only used by state employees, it's used by lots of people. And we're glad, we're excited that lots of people are taking advantage of that service.
It's an excellent program. You're an economic developer, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the realization of that right now.
I don't know about that. We'll see.
Another strong partnering effort is taking place with FSU, FAMU, and TCC.
Yes.
Cross-institutional collaboration.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Happy to do that. Excited about that, quite frankly. President Barron at FSU and Interim President Robinson at FAMU, and before him President Ammons and I, all three of us have formed a very strong personal relationship. And out of that personal relationship, we began to really see that we needed to start telling our story as a story of higher education, not as a story of individual institutions. We went to, before the city of Tallahassee at their annual retreat, the three presidents, which had never been done, frankly. And we sat there and described, for instance, how none of our institutions, I'll use this as an example, none of our institutions by themselves can provide the talent necessary for the healthcare industry. Right. But when you add the three institutions together, we provide the talent at all levels that are required for healthcare, specifically. Florida State University obviously produces doctors, they produce some nurses, they produce others at a very high proficiency level. Florida A&M has, I think, the premier, if not one of the premier, pharmacy schools Absolutely. In the country. We produce nurses and radiology technicians and surgical technologists and dental hygienists. When you take a look at the entire spectrum, when the three of us are together, we can meet the needs not only of healthcare, that's an example, but we can meet the needs of other industries as well. FSU and FAMU have the College of Engineering, the Joint College of Engineering. And I like to say they produce the engineers and we produce the technicians. You got to have all of that as part of a robust talent supply that meets the needs of employers. And so we've all come together in this collaboration. We produced a brochure, and I'll give President Eric Barron the credit for this. He took the bull by the horns and created this brochure that we now use to tell the message that the three of us are working together to enhance economic development activities. We have joined forces on making a difference with veterans in our community. So we're really beginning to sort of get our momentum, frankly, in this area.
I think Congressman Miller would be very interested in, if he isn't already, in that program for the veterans particularly.
We've had great interest from all of our elected officials in Washington.
Excellent. You know, I tell you this, just personally, I love doing this show because of what I learned from my guest. And, you're kind of singing our tune, as I said before. It's so refreshing to hear about programs like this that are actually in the works and that are part of our region, and that's exciting. So, any way that Florida Northwest can help you promote that program, would like to put that on our website, and market it, because it's something that good programs need to be out there and marketed so people can see what's happening. And that you never know who's going to be viewing that as well. It could be a new prospect.
There you go.
Well, that's my next question. Actually, is we're a service organization. What can Florida's Great Northwest? You're a board member. What can we do to help you? And you've outlined a few good programs here. Is there anything we can do that in helping market that? I mean, we're traveling around the world, and we're talking about our higher education, whether it's Airbus, whether it's Boeing, whoever it may be. They all come to those questions about talent, higher education, of course, K through 12 as well. But those are important elements, whether they're going to be a part of the community or their company's going to be a part of the community. So what is it, do you feel, Dr. Murdaugh, that we can do possibly to help you?
Well, I would say that we need to continue to have the same kind of dialogue that the three of us higher education institutions are having. We need to figure out how to put together a more cohesive message that you can carry with you as you go on your travels. The interesting part, and you know this better than I do, when you look at Florida's Great Northwest and you look at who you serve, we are so different from the east to the west. You've got the military infrastructure and assets to build on over in the east. You've got an incredible, I think, higher education contribution, particularly out of Florida State and FAMU, certainly out of us. So the message is very different. But goodness, if you could cobble together a message of the entirety so that you provide people with almost a menu to choose from, because you're going to be talking to people who represent different industry sectors and who are going to need different talent. We in our community can't provide the kind of talent that you're going to get by being close to Eglin Air Force Base. Conversely, Eglin Air Force Base won't produce the kind of talent that we'll produce in our community. And so I think it's a matter, again, of figuring out how we tell our story. I'm focused on this notion of telling our story in a more effective way so that people really get it.
Well, that's a great message, and I will take that back to the rest of the board. Okay, we've only got a few minutes, Dr. Murdaugh. I'd like a couple more questions,
Sure.
And I don't know, I know you don't have the time, but I could do this for a couple of hours with you, probably learn a lot more as well. I wanted to talk about your advanced manufacturing program. I wanted to get that in there because Bruce Batten has explained it to me. I've introduced a couple of our industries in the western end of the Panhandle, and that went very well. They were excited about it because, as you said, particularly like in Fort Walton Beach, a lot of advanced manufacturing taking place. Manufacturing is growing in the United States, so you've kind of been there before it happened. But now that you're there with this center, what does that mean for your region in terms of helping companies and helping students to be able to match up those talents?
Well, it has really been an amazing addition to our portfolio to be able to have that physical space where people can come and learn those skills. And those are, you hear all this dialogue about online learning. Well, you don't learn that online. That's a contact sport. And to be in there with, high-end CNC computerized manufacturing equipment, to make that asset available to manufacturers in our areas is phenomenal. And I think it's also changed, this is kind of interesting to me at least, it's changed the dialogue about manufacturing. When you talk about manufacturing, a lot of people immediately think about what I will call sort of routine, and I don't mean to demean this in any way, but they think about putting a bumper on a car, or they're thinking about, putting a car together in some fashion. And as you know, manufacturing today is highly, highly technical, highly skilled in its nature, and pays pretty darn well when you get those skills. So it's been a great asset. We continue to try to improve that asset. We use it as an incubation space for companies to work in that space. We hope and intend to use it more for helping to commercialize some of the research and work that's coming out of FSU and FAMU, for example. So it's been a great addition to our portfolio.
Well, you've got that collaboration already in place, and you know, if I can, I'd like to just reiterate about what you just said about the pay scale of those advanced manufacturing jobs. I know that they pay so well, and not every person, a young man or young woman, has to go to college in order to get a good career.
Exactly.
And it's not taken away from the colleges or the universities, but those skills, I'll give you an example. My stepson just graduated as an engineer. He's working in a major defense contractor. He's working alongside men and women that have been there 20, 30 years. They don't have a college education. They're making great money. He looks up to them, and I think he might have been a little cocky when he got in there, but now he's realizing a reality of life that, you know, everything's not about having a degree. It's about education and fitting in where you might belong and where you are comfortable and where you enjoy.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that's so important to
Absolutely.
enjoy what you do. You obviously enjoy what you do, Dr. Murdaugh.
I do very much.
Well, I enjoy this, and I've enjoyed this very much. I think we're probably close to out of time. So I want to thank Dr. Jim Murdaugh, President of Tallahassee Community College, for being our guest today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope to do this again with you, Dr. Murdaugh.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it, Larry.
Thank you.